The Moretti executive chair cost more than most people earned in a year. Vivian Cross didn't know this when her bone-weary body collapsed into it at 2:47 a.m., the scent of industrial bleach still clinging to her raw hands. 16 hours, 3 jobs. Her knees throbbed with a pain that had become her constant companion, and her eyes burned with an exhaustion that felt woven into her very bones. Just 5 minutes, she told herself, as consciousness slipped away. Nobody comes to the office at 3 in the morning. She was catastrophically wrong. At 3:15 a.m., the private elevator chimed, a sound Vivian's exhausted mind didn't register. Sebastian Moretti's imposing frame emerged into the darkness of his executive sanctuary, the Chicago skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows like scattered diamonds on black velvet. His hand found the light switch. There she was, a stranger, asleep in his chair, behind his desk, her cleaning cart abandoned beside her like the wreckage of a shipwreck, buckets and mops scattered in chaotic surrender. Sebastian's jaw clenched with such force his molars ached. His head of security, a former Special Forces operative named Garrett, materialized at his shoulder with practiced silence. "Sir, I'll remove her immediately." "No!" Sebastian's voice could have frozen Lake Michigan solid. "Let her sleep." Garrett's carefully neutral expression fractured with confusion. Everyone who worked for Sebastian Moretti knew about his pathological need for order. The man wore leather gloves to business meetings just to avoid skin contact. His office underwent deep cleaning twice daily. He'd once terminated a senior executive for leaving a water ring on the conference table, and now he wanted to let a random cleaning woman sleep in his personal space? "Sir," Garrett ventured carefully, "should I?" "Get me Morrison's number, the owner of the cleaning service, his personal cell." "Sir, it's 3 in the—" Did I stutter? 5 minutes later, Sebastian had made his calls. Then he turned to Garrett, his dark eyes never leaving Vivian's sleeping form. "Bring me something long and rigid, a ruler, a yardstick, something that will wake her without me having to touch her." Garrett knew better than to question the peculiar request. "Yes, sir." When Garrett returned with a wooden ruler, Sebastian took it with gloved hands. His voice dropped to something dangerous. "Everyone out. Now." The security team exchanged glances but filed into the elevator without protest. The doors whispered shut, leaving Sebastian alone with the intruder who dared violate his sanctuary. He approached slowly, the ruler held like a conductor's baton. Vivian slept on, her chest rising and falling with the deep rhythm of someone pushed far beyond their limits. Her face, even in exhaustion, held a striking beauty. Sharp cheekbones, full lips slightly parted, skin the color of warm mahogany. Sebastian pulled on fresh gloves, his movements precise, controlled, dangerous. What was he about to do? And how had this woman ended up asleep in the office of a man who controlled everything and everyone in his orbit? 3 days earlier, the smell of antiseptic burned Vivian's nostrils as she sat beside Grace Cross's hospital bed. The heart monitor's rhythmic beeping was the only sound in the sterile room, a metronome counting down to a deadline Vivian couldn't afford to miss. Grace had been unconscious for 2 days, her body ravaged by the cancer that spread through her like wildfire. She was only 53, but looked 70 in the harsh fluorescent light. Dr. Patricia Chen entered quietly, her blue scrubs crisp despite the late hour. "Miss Cross," Vivian stood, her heart already sinking. "How is she?" "Deteriorating." Dr. Chen's kindness made the words hurt more. "The experimental treatment is showing promise, but we need to perform surgery immediately. The window of opportunity is closing." "When?" "Within the week." Dr. Chen hesitated, and Vivian knew what came next. "There's the matter of the outstanding balance. Hospital policy requires at least half the total cost up front for a procedure this extensive." "Half?" The room tilted. "How much is half?" $140,000. The number hit Vivian like a physical blow. She made $12 an hour at the diner, $15 at the cleaning company. Working 80 hours a week, she barely cleared $2,000 a month after rent and bills. "I don't have that kind of money," Vivian whispered, the words scraping her throat raw. "I understand, but without the surgery—" Dr. Chen didn't finish. She didn't have to. 20 minutes later, Vivian's best friend found her in the hospital chapel. Sienna Martinez slid into the pew beside her, balancing 2 cups of terrible coffee with practiced ease. Nurse Deborah said you look like you were about to pass out. $140,000. Vivian's voice was hollow. That's what I need by the end of the week. Sienna let out a low whistle. Jesus, I don't think even he has that kind of cash lying around. Despite everything, Sienna smiled. Girl, Sister Margaret would have us both doing penance for that comment. The laugh that escaped Vivian came out as a sob. Sienna's arms came around her immediately, and Vivian let herself break. The ugly kind of crying where you can't breathe and your nose runs and you sound like a wounded animal. I can't lose her, Sienna. Grace is the strongest woman I know. She survived raising you alone after your dad left. She survived working herself to the bone for 20 years. She'll survive this too. Not if I can't pay for it. Then we figure out how. Sienna pulled back, her dark eyes fierce. How many jobs are you working? 3. Morning shift at the diner, afternoon cleaning downtown, overnight at the airport. You need more. Vivian laughed bitterly. I sleep 4 hours a day as it is. My cousin Jasmine works for Morrison Cleaning Services. They handle all the high-rises in the loop. Better pay, always hiring because the work's brutal. How much better? $25 an hour plus overtime. And girl, there's always overtime. Rich folks want their offices cleaned at weird hours. Vivian's mind calculated automatically. $25 an hour, overtime rates, if she could get 40 hours there, plus keep the diner job. Text me Jasmine's number. Already doing it. Sienna's thumbs flew across her phone screen. But Viv, promise me you'll take care of yourself too. Real meals, vitamins, sleep when you can. They shook on it like they were 10 years old again, making pinky promises about sharing secrets and keeping safe. Back when Vivian's biggest problem was whether she'd get new shoes before school started, not whether her mother would live or die. Whatever it takes, Vivian thought as she headed back to Grace's room. Whatever it takes. 3 weeks later, the Morrison orientation was held in a dingy office that smelled like mildew and desperation. Vivian sat between a woman with a persistent cough and a teenage boy who couldn't possibly be old enough to work legally. Harold Morrison, heavyset 50s, sweat stains under his arms, gestured at a PowerPoint that looked like it was made in 1997. Morrison Services provides premium cleaning for Chicago's elite business community. Our clients expect excellence, discretion, invisibility. The coughing woman raised her hand. What's invisibility mean? It means you clean after hours. Don't touch personal items. Don't snoop. Don't steal. You don't exist to them except as the reason their office is spotless when they arrive. He clicked to the next slide. A massive skyscraper appeared, all steel and glass and arrogant wealth. The Moretti Building, 68 floors. We service the entire structure, but floors 60 through 68 are special. Why? Someone asked. Morrison's voice took on an almost reverent tone. Because that's where he works. Sebastian Moretti, CEO of Moretti Enterprises, one of the richest men in America. He owns this building and 50 others across the country. Vivian leaned forward, studying the building. She'd seen it before. Everyone in Chicago had. It dominated the skyline like a middle finger to poverty. Mr. Moretti is particular. Morrison chose his words carefully. He has very specific requirements. Everything must be perfect, and I mean perfect. You miss a spot, you're fired. Move something on his desk, you're fired. Show up late, you're fired. Breathe wrong, you're probably fired. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Morrison didn't laugh. In the past year, I've lost 14 employees to Mr. Moretti's standards. He calls me personally to report infractions. So if you're assigned to the Moretti floors, you better be ready to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. Vivian raised her hand. How much does the Moretti assignment pay? Morrison smiled for the first time. $30 an hour plus overtime, plus a completion bonus if you last 6 months without being fired. The room went silent. $30 an hour was life-changing money for people like them. How do we get that assignment? You don't get it. You survive long enough for me to trust you, and then maybe I'll put you on the Moretti rotation. But let me be clear. That job will eat you alive. Sebastian Moretti is a perfectionist with OCD and control issues that would make a military general look relaxed. I'll take it, Vivian interrupted. Everyone turned to stare. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? I'll take the Moretti assignment. Whenever you're ready to trust me, I want it. Vivian's voice was steady, though her heart hammered. I need the money. I'll work harder than anyone. I won't complain. I won't quit. Morrison studied her for a long moment. You got family problems? Medical bills? Vivian nodded. Everyone who volunteers for Moretti duty has something desperate driving them. Morrison's voice was almost kind. All right, Miss Cross. You start on the regular rotation tomorrow. Night shift, floors 10 through 20. Do good work. Show up on time every day for 2 weeks, and we'll talk about Moretti. As Vivian walked out into the October wind, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Whatever it takes, she thought again. Whatever it takes. Vivian lasted exactly 13 days before Morrison called her in. You're good, he said without preamble. Fast, thorough, no complaints. Jasmine was right about you. Vivian stood before his desk in her cleaning uniform, reeking of industrial cleaner and exhaustion. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. I'm short-staffed on the Moretti floors. 3 people quit last week. One of them actually cried when she resigned. I won't quit. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Vivian met his eyes. My mother has stage 4 cancer. Her surgery costs more than I'll make in 3 years. I need this job, Mr. Morrison. I won't quit. I won't mess up. I'll do whatever it takes. Morrison sighed heavily. You're going to regret those words, but all right. Starting tonight, you're on Moretti duty. Midnight to 8 a.m. The floors must be pristine before employees arrive at 7:30. What about my diner job? Your problem to figure out. Vivian did the math. Diner shift ended at 11. Express bus could get her to the Moretti building by midnight. Work until 8, sleep until 2, back to the diner by 3. 4 hours of sleep. She'd survived on less. I can make it work. Morrison slid a thick binder across his desk. The Moretti manual. Every single requirement for cleaning his floors. Read it, memorize it, live it. First shift is tonight at midnight. Don't be late. At 11:47 p.m., Vivian stood before the Moretti building, neck craned back. It was even more intimidating up close. Glass panels reflecting city lights, making the whole structure glow with contained power. She squared her shoulders and walked through the revolving door. Cleaning crew? The security guard didn't look up. Yes, sir. Vivian Cross. First night on Moretti floors. Now he looked up. He was black, maybe 60, with gray hair and kind eyes. First night? Lord have mercy. You know what you're getting into. I read the manual. Reading it and living it are different things. Walter, his name tag said, pulled out a tablet. Mr. Moretti is particular about everything. Last girl got fired for coiling the vacuum cord in the wrong direction. You're joking. I wish I was. Walter handed her a badge and key card. Service elevators around the corner. You'll be working alone up there. Mr. Moretti doesn't like multiple people in his space. Alone? All 9 floors? All 9 floors. 8 hours. Better get started. By 2:30 a.m., Vivian understood why 3 people had quit. The Moretti floors were already immaculate. It was like cleaning a space that was already clean, searching for invisible dirt that might offend a man who apparently saw imperfections normal humans couldn't perceive. But it wasn't just the cleaning, it was the pressure. Every surface felt important. The conference table on the 63rd floor probably cost more than her childhood home. The modern art looked museum quality. The carpet was so pristine she felt guilty stepping on it. And everywhere, there were signs of Sebastian Moretti's obsessive control. Books arranged by height and color, coffee mugs in the break room, handles out, evenly spaced. Even the pens on desks were aligned parallel to the edges. Vivian found herself holding her breath, terrified of disturbing the perfect order. By the time she reached the 68th floor, Sebastian's personal executive suite, she was behind schedule and exhausted in her bones. The suite was like something from a film, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. A desk the size of her apartment's kitchen, made from dark wood that probably cost more than her car. Real art on the walls. And that chair, that beautiful, butter-soft Italian leather chair behind the massive desk. Vivian knew she shouldn't. The manual explicitly said never to sit in client furniture. But her feet screamed. Her back ached. And that chair looked so comfortable. Just for a second, she told herself. Just to rest my legs. She sank into it, and it was like sitting on a cloud. The leather was impossibly soft, the cushioning perfect, the height adjusted exactly right. Vivian closed her eyes. Just 1 minute, then back to work. She woke to something poking her arm. Not a finger, a ruler. Wake up! The voice was deep, cold, and very, very angry. Vivian's eyes flew open. He was the most devastatingly beautiful man she'd ever seen. 6'3" of controlled fury in a three-piece suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her salary. His skin was deep bronze, his hair cut close, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes that made Vivian's blood run cold. Dark brown, almost black, and absolutely merciless. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. You fell asleep, in my chair, in my office. Each word was precisely articulated. Do you have any idea how many health codes you just violated? Vivian tried to scramble out of the chair, but her exhausted body didn't cooperate. She half fell, catching herself on the desk. Wait. His office? This was Sebastian Moretti? I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti. I was just... Get out. Sebastian's voice didn't rise, but the command made Vivian flinch. I'm calling Morrison right now. You're fired. Security will escort you from the building. Panic seized her chest. No, please, no. I can't get fired. My mother is sick. She has cancer, and I need the money for her surgery. I'll work harder. I'll never sit down again. Everyone has a sob story. Sebastian interrupted coldly, walking around his desk, giving her wide berth, she noticed. Yours doesn't interest me. Vivian did something desperate. She lunged forward and grabbed his wrist before he could pick up the phone. Please! The world exploded, not with pain, but with a jolt of pure electricity that shot up Vivian's arm and straight through her entire body. It was like touching a live wire, except instead of hurting, it sent pleasant tingles everywhere. A warm, shocking current that made her gasp and let go instantly. Sebastian recoiled like she'd burned him. His whole body jerked backward with such force that his elbow caught the desk edge. The phone went flying, arcing through the air in slow motion before smashing against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. The screen shattered into 1,000 pieces. Absolute silence. Vivian stared at the destroyed phone, her mind reeling from the strange electric shock. Sebastian stared at his bare wrist where she'd touched him, his face twisted in something between shock and astonishment. That phone, Sebastian said very quietly, his eyes still fixed on his wrist, cost $80,000. Vivian's world tilted. 80? What? Custom made, encrypted, one of a kind. Sebastian finally looked up at her, something calculating in his gaze. You're going to pay for it, every penny. I don't have $80,000. You'll work it off. His voice was cold, but his eyes kept flicking back to his wrist. Starting tonight. Work it off how? I have a chef, 2 housekeepers, and 2 maintenance staff who handle my home. I'm giving them all extended vacation. You're going to replace them. Vivian's mouth fell open. One person can't do the work of 5 people. Then you'll work very hard. Sebastian pulled out another phone. Apparently he had backups and started typing. You'll arrive at my penthouse every morning at 6 a.m. You'll cook, clean, run errands, handle every aspect of my household until 6 p.m. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. No. Pride finally kicked in. No, I'm not going to be your servant. I'd rather go to jail. She turned and ran. She didn't look back, just ran, heart pounding, mind reeling from that electric touch and the insane offer and the sheer arrogance of this man who thought he could buy her life. She ran all the way to the service elevator and didn't stop until she was out of the building, hailing a cab to the hospital. Vivian burst into Cook County Hospital at 4:12 a.m., her chest heaving. She ran to Grace's room and found a team of doctors and nurses surrounding the bed. Her heart stopped. What's happening? What's wrong? Dr. Chen turned, her face grim. Miss Cross, your mother went into cardiac arrest. We've revived her, but she's critical. We need emergency surgery now if she has any chance of survival. Then do it. We can't. Not without payment. The hospital requires at least half the total cost before we can proceed with a procedure this risky. That's $140,000, Miss Cross. We need it now. Two large men in dark suits appeared behind her, Garrett and another guard. Miss Cross, Garrett said coldly, Mr. Moretti requires your presence immediately. No, I'm not going anywhere. My mother is dying. She'll die anyway if you don't come with us, the other guard said, grabbing her arm. Garrett's phone rang. He answered. Sir. Vivian could hear Sebastian's voice, faint but clear. Is that the doctor? Put him on speaker. Garrett tapped the screen. Dr. Chen's voice filled the space. Without the funds, there's nothing more we can do. What's the total? Sebastian's voice cut through, sharp and commanding. $300,000 for the full treatment plan. Transfer the funds now. All of it. I want her in surgery within the hour. Dr. Chen stared, mouth open. Who is this? Someone who believes in paying his debts. Sebastian's voice came through again, directed at Vivian, and collecting what he's owed. You refused my offer, Miss Cross. So now the terms have changed. Your mother's medical bills are paid in full. You now owe me $380,000. At $30 an hour, working for me 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, that will take approximately 2 years to pay off. Vivian felt the blood drain from her face. You can't. I already did. You start at my penthouse tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. The line went dead. Dr. Chen stared at Vivian. I don't understand what's happening here, but the funds just cleared. Your mother is being prepped for surgery now. Vivian looked through the window where they were wheeling Grace away. A chance. That's all she'd ever wanted, and the price was 2 years of her life. If you think Sebastian just played Vivian, like a master chess player, and she's trapped for good, you're only seeing half the picture. If you think there's more to Sebastian's obsession with getting her to work for him than just a broken phone, you're absolutely right. Either way, what happens when Vivian moves into Sebastian's world is going to change both their lives forever. The address Sebastian texted was in the Gold Coast, one of Chicago's most expensive neighborhoods. Vivian stood outside the sleek glass building at 5:52 a.m., staring up at the tower that overlooked Lake Michigan like it owned the view. 3 buses to get here. She couldn't afford an Uber. Now she stood in the private lobby, a key card trembling in her hand. The elevator was private, direct to the penthouse. No stops. You can do this, she told herself. It's just 2 years. 2 years and Mom is healthy and you're free. And this is all just a bad memory. She swiped the key card. The elevator doors opened. Vivian stepped inside, and the doors closed behind her with a soft whisper that sounded like a trap snapping shut. The penthouse was exactly what she expected and somehow worse. Everything was white and chrome and glass. The furniture looked museum-worthy. The art on the walls was definitely real and definitely worth more than Vivian would earn in her entire lifetime. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a view of Lake Michigan so beautiful it hurt. And it was absolutely, obsessively, perfectly clean. Not a speck of dust. Not a single item out of place. Even the throw pillows were arranged at precise angles, like someone had measured them with a protractor. You're 8 minutes early. Vivian jumped and spun around. Sebastian stood in a doorway, dressed in expensive athletic wear that showed off broad shoulders and a muscular frame, a towel around his neck, water bottle in hand. He'd just finished working out. He looked good, the kind of good that made Vivian's mouth go dry, despite the fact that she was supposed to hate him. I thought early was better than late. Early is unpredictable. Unpredictable disrupts my schedule. Sebastian's dark eyes swept over her, assessing. But I suppose it shows initiative. There's a schedule on the kitchen counter. Follow it exactly. I'll be in my office. Don't disturb me unless the building is on fire. He disappeared through another door before she could respond. Vivian stood alone in the massive living room and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 2 years, she reminded herself. You can survive anything for 2 years. The schedule was typed, printed, and laminated. Of course it was. Daily schedule, household staff. 6 to 8 a.m., prepare breakfast, egg white omelet with spinach and tomatoes. No cheese. 1 slice whole grain toast. Dry, black coffee, French press. Exactly 4 minutes brewing time. Fresh orange juice. Squeeze that morning, not from carton. 7 a.m., serve breakfast, place in dining room on Eastern placemat utensils, exactly 1 inch from plate edge. Coffee cup handle at 3 o'clock position, 7:30 a.m. Clean kitchen, wash all dishes immediately. Wipe counters with antibacterial solution, mop floor. The list went on for pages. Every minute of Vivian's 12-hour day was accounted for, scheduled, controlled. Just like everything else in Sebastian Moretti's life. The omelet was a disaster. Not a burn-down-the-kitchen disaster, but definitely not the perfect fluffy creation the schedule demanded. The eggs were rubbery, the vegetables weren't distributed evenly. When Vivian tried to flip it, the whole thing broke apart into scrambled egg chunks. "Damn it," she muttered, staring at the mess. She scooped it onto a plate anyway, arranged it as nicely as possible, and added the toast and coffee and orange juice, which had taken 20 minutes to squeeze by hand because Sebastian didn't have an electric juicer. He had some fancy manual press that required actual effort. At exactly 7 a.m., Vivian carried the tray to the dining room. Sebastian was already seated, reading something on his tablet, wearing a fresh suit that probably cost more than her car. He didn't look up when she entered. Vivian set the plate down. Eastern placemat, utensils exactly 1 inch from the edge. Coffee cup handle at 3 o'clock. Sebastian glanced at the food. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened slightly. "This omelet is scrambled." "I know, I'm not a chef." "I did my best." "Your best resulted in scrambled eggs when I requested an omelet." "Then maybe you should lower your expectations," Vivian shot back before she could stop herself. Sebastian's eyes flicked up to meet hers. For a moment, Vivian thought she'd just made a terrible mistake. This man owned her for 2 years. He could make her life hell. But instead of anger, something that looked almost like amusement flickered in his dark eyes. "Lower my expectations." He repeated it slowly, like testing a foreign concept. No one has ever suggested that before. Maybe they should have. Sebastian picked up his fork and took a bite of the scrambled omelet thing. He chewed slowly, thoughtfully, then swallowed. "It's adequate. Tomorrow, watch a video on how to make a proper omelet. YouTube has thousands of tutorials. Pick one and learn." "Yes, sir," Vivian said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "And Miss Cross?" Sebastian's voice stopped her as she turned to leave. "What?" "I don't require you to call me, sir. Sebastian is fine." Vivian looked back, surprised. "You want me to call you by your first name? We'll be working closely together for 2 years. Formality seems unnecessary." He took a sip of coffee, and Vivian saw the tiniest hint of satisfaction cross his face. "The coffee is perfect, by the way. However you made it, do it exactly the same tomorrow." It was probably the closest thing to a compliment Sebastian Moretti had ever given anyone. Vivian didn't know whether to be pleased or annoyed. She settled for confused. The rest of the morning was a blur of endless tasks. Clean the kitchen, wipe down all surfaces, organize the pantry alphabetically, because of course everything had to be alphabetical. Vacuum the living room in straight lines. Dust the bookshelves without moving any books out of their precise order. By noon, Vivian's back ached and her hands smelled like cleaning solution. The schedule said she had a 30-minute lunch break, so she collapsed onto a kitchen stool and pulled out the sandwich she'd brought from home. She was halfway through it when she felt someone watching her. Vivian looked up. Sebastian stood in the doorway, staring at her sandwich like it was a foreign object. "Is that gas station ham?" His tone was somewhere between fascinated and horrified. "Yes, it's cheap and it fills me up. Problem? I have a refrigerator full of organic, free-range, artisanal ingredients, and you're eating gas station ham. Your fancy ingredients are for your meals, not mine. You work for me. You eat what's in my kitchen." Sebastian walked to the refrigerator and started pulling things out. "There's smoked salmon, prosciutto, Fresh mozzarella, arugula. I'm fine with my sandwich. You're not fine. You're eating processed meat that's probably 50% sodium and 50% chemicals. He was already assembling something on a plate. Fresh bread, fancy cheese, vegetables that looked like they cost more per pound than Vivian made per hour. He slid the plate across the counter. Eat that instead. Vivian stared at the beautiful gourmet sandwich, then at Sebastian, then back at the sandwich. Why do you care what I eat? Because if you get sick from food poisoning, you can't work. And if you can't work, my household falls apart. Sebastian's voice was logical, practical, completely emotionless. It's in my best interest to keep you healthy. But as he turned to leave, Vivian saw something in his expression that didn't match his cold words. Something that looked almost like concern. No, she thought, impossible. Sebastian Moretti doesn't care about people. He cares about control and order and getting what he wants. And what he wanted was a healthy servant who could make a proper omelet. That was all. By 2 p.m., Vivian was cleaning Sebastian's bedroom. And that's when things got weird. The bedroom was exactly what she expected. Enormous bed with white linens tucked with military precision. Nightstands with perfectly aligned lamps and books. Closet full of suits organized by color. It was spotless. Vivian felt like she was wasting time cleaning a room that didn't need cleaning. She was pretending to dust an already shiny nightstand when she heard footsteps. She turned. Sebastian stood in the doorway, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Do you need something? No, just checking on your progress. I'm dusting, not exactly complicated. Nevertheless, he stepped into the room, moving closer. Vivian went back to dusting, acutely aware of him standing just feet away, watching her every move. She reached for the lamp on the far side of the nightstand, stretching across the surface. Sebastian moved. He stepped forward quickly, his hand reaching out like he was going to touch her shoulder. But at the last second, he pulled back, his fingers just inches from her shirt. Vivian spun around. What are you doing? Nothing. I thought you were going to knock over the lamp. I wasn't going to knock it over. Of course, my mistake. Sebastian turned and walked out, leaving Vivian standing there, confused and a little creeped out. What was that about? It happened again at 4 p.m. Vivian was in the living room organizing the bookshelf when she felt Sebastian's presence behind her. She glanced over her shoulder and caught him reaching toward her. His hand extended like he was about to tap her on the back. The moment she turned, he dropped his hand and stepped back. Yes? I was just going to tell you that you're organizing those books incorrectly. They're in alphabetical order by author, just like the schedule says. Yes, but within each author, they should be organized by publication date. Oldest to newest. That wasn't in the schedule. It's implied. How is that implied? By the fact that organization follows a logical hierarchy. Author, then chronology. It's obvious. It's not obvious. It's obsessive. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Sebastian said quietly, "Reorganize them, please," and walked away. Vivian stood there, watching him disappear into his office, and something clicked. He wasn't actually upset about the books. He'd wanted an excuse to get close to her. But why? That night, after her shift ended at 6 p.m., Vivian went straight to the hospital. The surgery had been successful. Grace was still unconscious, still on a ventilator, but Dr. Chen said her vitals were stable and the tumor removal had gone better than expected. She's a fighter, Dr. Chen said with a tired smile. The next 72 hours are critical, but I'm optimistic. Vivian sat beside her mother's bed and held her hand, the one without all the IV lines, and tried not to cry. I got a job, Mom, Vivian whispered. It's weird, and the boss is intense, and I'm pretty sure he's secretly insane, but it pays well. Well enough to cover all your medical bills. You're going to get better, and then we're going to go home, and everything's going to be okay. Grace's chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Vivian stayed until visiting hours ended, then took 3 buses back to her tiny apartment and collapsed into bed. Tomorrow she had to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to make it to Sebastian's penthouse by 6 soon. This was her life now, for the next 2 years. 1 week later. You're humming. Vivian looked up from where she was folding laundry. Sebastian's shirts perfectly pressed and folded according to a diagram he'd given her. What? You've been humming for the past 3 days. Same song every time. Sebastian stood in the doorway of the laundry room, coffee cup in hand, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What is it? Vivian felt her face heat. She hadn't realized she'd been humming out loud. Just an old gospel song my mom used to sing when I was little. Your mother is recovering well, I assume. You know about that? I paid the bills. I get the medical updates. Sebastian's voice was matter-of-fact. Dr. Chen says she's responding to treatment better than expected. Something warm bloomed in Vivian's chest. He was keeping track of Grace's recovery. Thank you, Vivian said quietly, for paying for everything. I know I'm working it off, but still, thank you. Sebastian looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. It was a business transaction, nothing more. But as he turned to leave, Vivian caught him flexing his right hand, the wrist she'd grabbed that night in his office, like he was remembering something. The weird, almost touching thing kept happening. Every day, multiple times a day. Vivian would catch Sebastian nearby, his hand reaching toward her like he was going to tap her shoulder or brush her arm, but he always pulled back at the last second. Always found some excuse. You missed a spot on the counter. That book is crooked. Your hair was about to catch on the stove flame. The excuses were getting more ridiculous. Vivian was getting more confused. Finally, on day 9, she confronted him. Why do you keep doing that? Sebastian was in the kitchen, pretending to inspect the refrigerator shelves while Vivian made his afternoon smoothie. He'd been hovering for 10 minutes. Doing what? Getting close to me, reaching for me, then pulling away. Vivian set down the blender and crossed her arms. If you have a problem with my work, just say it. Stop dancing around whatever this is. I don't have a problem with your work. Then what's going on? Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, when you touched my wrist that night in my office, did you feel anything? The question caught Vivian completely off guard. Feel anything? You mean besides panic that I just destroyed an $80,000 phone? Yes, besides that. Sebastian finally looked at her, his dark eyes intense, searching. When your skin touched mine, did you feel anything unusual? Vivian thought back to that moment, the electric shock, the warm tingles that spread through her whole body. She'd assumed it was just adrenaline, fear, exhaustion. I'm not sure what you mean, she said carefully, heat rising to her face. Sebastian studied her for another moment, then seemed to come to a decision. He held out his hand. Touch me again. What? Your hand on my wrist, like you did before. His voice was calm, clinical, like he was proposing a science experiment. I want to test something. Test what? Just do it, please. Vivian stared at his outstretched hand. This was insane. Her boss was asking her to touch him. The same boss who wore gloves to shake hands, who sanitized everything constantly, who couldn't handle contamination. You have OCD, Vivian said slowly. You don't let people touch you. I know. So why? Because I need to know if it happens again. Sebastian's voice was tight now, frustrated. Just touch me, Vivian. Please. The use of her first name made something flutter in Vivian's chest. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and placed her hand on his wrist. The effect was immediate. Electricity shot through both of them. That same warm, pleasant shock that made Vivian gasp and Sebastian's eyes go wide. But this time, Sebastian didn't pull away. He stood perfectly still, staring at Vivian's hand on his skin, his breathing coming faster. You feel it, Vivian whispered. Don't you? Yes. His voice was rough. I feel it. They stood like that for several seconds, hand on wrist, electricity crackling between them, neither one willing to break the connection. Finally, Vivian pulled her hand back, her heart pounding. What is that? She asked. Why does that happen? I don't know. Sebastian was staring at his wrist like it held the secrets of the universe. With everyone else, when they touch me, I feel contaminated, disgusted, like I need to scrub my skin raw. But with you, with me what? Sebastian looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made Vivian's breath catch. With you, I feel alive. That night, Vivian couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment in the kitchen, the way Sebastian had looked at her, the electricity between them. With you, I feel alive. What did that mean? And why did Vivian's traitor heart keep skipping beats when she thought about it? This man owned her for 2 years. He'd trapped her in a debt she couldn't escape. He was controlling and obsessive and impossible to please. She shouldn't feel anything for him except resentment. But when he looked at her with those vulnerable eyes, Vivian rolled over and groaned into her pillow. Don't be stupid, she told herself. He's your boss, your captor, basically. Whatever this electricity thing is, it doesn't mean anything. But even as she thought it, Vivian knew she was lying to herself. 2 weeks later, the day everything changed started normally enough. Vivian arrived at the penthouse at 6 a.m., made breakfast, a perfect omelet this time. She'd watched 17 YouTube videos, and started her cleaning routine. At 2 p.m., the building manager called to inform Sebastian that the quarterly inspection was scheduled for that afternoon. Sebastian's face went pale when he got the call. Today? His voice was tight. You're certain it has to be today? Vivian watched from the kitchen where she was preparing his afternoon snack. She'd never seen Sebastian rattled before. His control was always perfect, his composure always intact. But right now he looked genuinely panicked. Fine, 2:30. Yes, I understand. Sebastian hung up and immediately started pacing, his hands flexing and unflexing at his sides. Is everything okay? Vivian asked carefully. Building inspection. They check all penthouse units quarterly for safety violations, maintenance issues. Sebastian's pacing got faster. They're coming in 2 hours. Okay. And that's a problem because the bedroom isn't clean. Vivian blinked. I cleaned the bedroom this morning. It's spotless. You don't understand. Sebastian ran his hand over his hair, messing it up in a way Vivian had never seen. I had an episode last night. A bad one. The bedroom it's not presentable. An episode? My PTSD. I have nightmares sometimes. When they're bad, He trailed off, his jaw clenching. Just go look. Vivian walked to the bedroom and opened the door, and stopped dead. The room looked like a tornado had hit it. The bed was destroyed, blankets twisted in half on the floor, pillows scattered, sheets pulled loose from the corners. Books had been knocked off the nightstand. There was broken glass on the floor. Even the curtains were half torn from their rods. This wasn't just a messy room. This was evidence of someone having a complete breakdown. Oh my God, Vivian whispered. Sebastian appeared behind her, and she could hear the shame in his voice. I told you it was bad. What happened? I had a nightmare about something from the past. When I woke up, I was disoriented. I couldn't remember where I was. I thought I was back in the burning house, and I was trying to get out. And he gestured helplessly at the destruction. Vivian turned to look at him. For the first time since she'd met him, Sebastian Moretti looked small, vulnerable, human. How long do we have before the inspectors get here? 1 hour and 45 minutes. Then we better get started. They worked together in intense silence. Vivian stripped the bed and remade it with fresh linens, while Sebastian picked up broken glass and cleaned up water. She straightened the curtains while he reorganized the books. She vacuumed while he wiped down every surface. At one point, they both reached for the same pillow. Their hands touched. That familiar electricity shot through them both, but neither one pulled away. They just stood there, hands touching, eyes locked, something heavy and intense passing between them. Thank you, Sebastian said quietly. For not asking questions, for just helping. You're welcome. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Then Sebastian's phone buzzed. 30 minutes until the inspection. They broke apart and got back to work. The bedroom was perfect by the time the building inspectors arrived. 2 people, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and a younger man with a tablet, showed up at exactly 2:30 p.m. Afternoon, the woman said with a professional smile. I'm Janet Harris, Building Management. This is my colleague, Carlos Reyes. We're here for the quarterly inspection. Is Mr. Moretti available? He's in a meeting. Vivian lied smoothly, because Sebastian had specifically told her to handle this without disturbing him. I'm Vivian Cross, his household manager. I can show you around. The inspection went smoothly. Janet and Carlos checked smoke detectors, tested water pressure, examined HVAC vents. Everything was perfect because, of course it was. When they got to the bedroom, Vivian held her breath. Janet walked around checking windows, testing outlets, making notes on her clipboard. Everything looks great in here, she said finally. Mr. Moretti maintains his property beautifully. Vivian let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. After the inspectors left, Vivian found Sebastian in his office, staring at his computer screen without actually seeing it. They're gone, Vivian said from the doorway. Everything passed inspection. Sebastian's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you for covering, for cleaning, for... He turned to look at her. For not making me feel like a freak about the bedroom. You're not a freak. I destroyed my own room in the middle of the night because I thought I was trapped in a fire from 13 years ago. That's pretty much the definition of a freak. Vivian walked into the office and sat down in the chair across from his desk, something she'd never done before. It felt presumptuous, but right now, Sebastian didn't look like a powerful billionaire CEO. He looked like a broken man who needed someone to see him. Tell me about the fire, Vivian said quietly. Please. Sebastian was silent for so long that Vivian thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he started talking. I was 8 years old. My dad worked long hours, so it was usually just me and my little sister Lily. She was 6. My mom worked evenings, so we were alone a lot. He paused and Vivian saw his hands trembling slightly. I was a reckless kid. Wild. Never listened. Never followed rules. My dad used to say I had too much energy and not enough sense. Sebastian's laugh was bitter. He was right. What happened? I found my dad's lighter. I'd been told 1,000 times not to play with fire, but I was 8 and stupid and thought I knew better. Sebastian's voice was getting tighter now, more strained. I was in my bedroom, lighting matches, watching them burn. It was fascinating, the way the flame moved, the heat, the power of it. Vivian could see where this was going, but she stayed quiet, letting him tell it. One of the matches fell onto my bedspread. It caught. I tried to put it out, but it spread so fast. Within seconds, the whole bed was on fire. Then the curtains. Then the walls. Sebastian's breathing was getting faster. I ran to get Lily. I thought we could get out together, but the smoke was so thick and the heat was so intense, and I was just a kid, and I didn't know what to do. Sebastian, my dad came home early. He heard us screaming. He ran into the house and got us out. Sebastian's voice broke. But then he went back for our dog. It was a puppy we'd just gotten. Vivian felt tears burning in her eyes. The house started collapsing while he was inside. We heard him screaming. We heard... Sebastian stopped, unable to continue for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Lily ran back toward the house. She was trying to save him. I tried to grab her, but I was too slow. The front wall collapsed on her. Oh my God. My dad died in the fire. Lily died 3 hours later in the hospital. Sebastian's hands were shaking badly now. My mom, she had a complete mental breakdown. She couldn't look at me, couldn't stand to be in the same room with me. I'd killed her husband and her daughter, destroyed her entire world. It was an accident. You were a child. It doesn't matter. Sebastian's voice was harsh. I caused it. My recklessness, my stupidity, my complete inability to follow simple rules. So my mom signed over custody to my uncle, my dad's estranged brother, who I'd met maybe twice. He was already a billionaire, made his fortune in tech. Did you ever see your mom again? Once, at the funeral. She looked at me like I was a monster, like I'd personally murdered her family. I've never forgotten that look. Sebastian's eyes were distant, reliving that moment. My uncle raised me, gave me everything money could buy, sent me to the best schools, left me his entire fortune when he died 5 years ago. But he never let me forget what I'd done, what I'd destroyed. Vivian's heart was breaking for this man who'd been carrying this guilt for almost 25 years. Is that why you have OCD? Vivian asked gently. The need for control? The psychiatrists say it's a trauma response. I lost control once and it destroyed everything. Now I can't tolerate even the smallest chaos. Everything has to be perfect. Ordered, clean, safe. Sebastian's laugh was hollow. The OCD is my punishment, my prison, and I deserve it. That's not true. It is true. I killed 2 people, Vivian, because I couldn't follow one simple rule. Sebastian finally looked at her, his eyes full of self-loathing. So yes, I deserve to live like this, in a sterile cage of my own making. It's the least I can do. Vivian stood up and walked around the desk. Sebastian watched her warily, like he wasn't sure what she was going to do. She held out her hand. What are you doing? Give me your hand. Vivian, just do it. Slowly, Sebastian placed his hand in hers. The electric sensation was there, just like always. But this time, Vivian didn't let it distract her. She squeezed his hand gently and said, "You were 8 years old, a child. What happened was a tragic accident, but it wasn't your fault. You didn't murder anyone. You didn't destroy anything on purpose. You were just a kid who made a mistake. You don't understand. I understand that you've been punishing yourself for 24 years for something that wasn't your fault. I understand that your mom was grieving and in pain, and she shouldn't have looked at you that way. I understand that your uncle should have gotten you therapy instead of just throwing money at you." Vivian's voice was firm. "And I understand that living in this perfect prison isn't honoring your father and sister. It's just slowly killing you." Sebastian's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I can't let go of the control. If I do, you won't burn down the world. You'll just start living in it again." They stood like that for a long moment, hands clasped, something profound passing between them. Then Sebastian pulled his hand away gently and said, "Thank you for listening. You're welcome." Vivian turned to leave, but Sebastian's voice stopped her. "Vivian, tomorrow is Sunday, your day off. Would you?" He hesitated like he wasn't sure how to finish the sentence. "Would you mind if I came with you to visit your mother?" Vivian turned back, surprised. "You want to come to the hospital? I know I have issues with hospitals, germs, contamination, all of that, but I'd like to meet the woman who raised someone like you. If that's okay." Something warm bloomed in Vivian's chest. "Yeah," she said softly, "that would be okay. If you think Sebastian and Vivian are falling for each other and you need to see what happens next, keep watching. Because what happens when Sebastian faces his worst fear for Vivian is going to change everything. And the confrontation with his past that's coming, it's going to break them both open in the most beautiful way possible." Sunday morning arrived cool and clear, the kind of Chicago autumn day that made the city look almost magical. Vivian stood outside Cook County Hospital at 9 a.m., checking her phone for the 3rd time. Sebastian had texted 20 minutes ago. "On my way. Traffic is heavy." She still couldn't quite believe he was actually coming. Sebastian Moretti, germaphobe billionaire with a hospital phobia, voluntarily going into the place he found most disgusting. For her. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Sebastian emerged from the back seat. Vivian's breath caught. He looked good. Really good. He dressed down, or what counted as dressed down for him. Dark jeans, a gray Henley that showed off his muscular frame, a leather jacket that probably cost more than Vivian's entire wardrobe. But it was his face that made Vivian's heart skip. He looked nervous, vulnerable, human. "Hey," Sebastian said, stopping a few feet away. "Hey yourself." Vivian noticed he was carrying a small bag. "What's that?" "Supplies." Sebastian opened the bag to reveal hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, disposable gloves, and a small spray bottle of something that probably killed every germ known to mankind. "I'm going into a hospital. I need to be prepared." Vivian wanted to make fun of him, but the fact that he was doing this at all, facing one of his biggest fears just to meet her mother, made her throat tight. "You don't have to do this, you know. I know how hard this is for you." "I want to do this." Sebastian met her eyes. "I want to meet the woman who raised someone strong enough to stand up to me." Something warm bloomed in Vivian's chest. "She's still pretty out of it from the medication. She might not even wake up." "That's okay. I just want to be there with you." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning neither of them was ready to examine too closely. Okay, Vivian said finally, but if you need to leave at any point, just say the word. I'll be fine. He wasn't fine. Sebastian made it exactly 17 steps into the hospital before his breathing got shallow. You okay? Vivian asked, watching him eye the hand sanitizer dispenser on the wall like it might attack him. Fine, Sebastian said tightly. He pulled out his own sanitizer and used it liberally, then snapped on a pair of disposable gloves. Just fine. They got on the elevator with 3 other people. Sebastian immediately pressed himself into the corner, trying to minimize contact. His jaw was clenched so tight Vivian could see the muscle jumping. When a nurse with a clipboard accidentally brushed against his arm, Sebastian flinched so hard he nearly hit the wall. Sorry, the nurse said cheerfully, not noticing his distress. Sebastian didn't respond, just stood there, rigid. Vivian reached out and touched his hand, the small patch of skin between his glove and his jacket sleeve. Sebastian's eyes met hers and she saw the panic receding slightly. You're doing great, Vivian whispered. I'm having a panic attack in an elevator. But you're still here. That's what counts. Sebastian's fingers curled slightly, almost like he wanted to hold her hand properly. But the elevator dinged and the doors opened. They made it to Grace's room without Sebastian bolting, which Vivian counted as a victory. Grace was awake. For the first time since the surgery, her eyes were open and alert. And when she saw Vivian, her face lit up with a smile that made Vivian's heart soar. Baby girl, Grace said, her voice raspy from the breathing tube they'd removed yesterday. Come here. Vivian rushed to her mother's bedside and carefully hugged her, trying not to disturb any IV lines. Mom, you're awake. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck, but I'm alive. Grace's eyes shifted to Sebastian, who was standing awkwardly by the door, clearly trying to touch as few surfaces as possible. And who's this handsome man you brought with you? Vivian felt her face heat. Mom, this is Sebastian. My boss. Your boss? Grace's eyes sharpened despite her weakened state. The one who paid my medical bills? Yes, ma'am, Sebastian said, stepping forward carefully. He didn't extend his hand, couldn't with his glove phobia, but he nodded respectfully. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Cross. Your daughter speaks very highly of you. Does she now? Grace studied Sebastian with an intensity that made Vivian nervous. Grace Cross might be recovering from major surgery, but her mother radar was still fully operational. And how exactly does my daughter's boss end up paying $300,000 in medical bills? Oh no! Mom! I told you I got a new job. A job that pays $300,000 up front for a girl with no college degree? Grace's eyes never left Sebastian. That's not a job, baby. That's something else entirely. Sebastian, to his credit, didn't flinch. Your daughter is working off the debt. She's serving as my household manager for the next 2 years at an hourly rate that will cover the medical expenses. 2 years of servitude for my medical bills. Grace's voice was flat. So you bought my daughter? I didn't buy. You trapped her in a contract she couldn't refuse because the alternative was letting me die. Grace's voice was getting stronger now, fueled by righteous anger. That's not generosity, Mr. Moretti. That's coercion. The room fell silent. Vivian had never heard anyone speak to Sebastian like that. Most people were too intimidated by his wealth and power. But Grace Cross had spent 20 years raising a daughter on her own while working 2 jobs and fighting poverty. A billionaire with control issues didn't scare her. You're right, Sebastian said quietly. Vivian's head whipped around to stare at him. What? Your mother is right. I did coerce you. I used your desperation against you to get what I wanted. Sebastian's voice was steady, but his eyes were pained. At the time, I told myself it was just business, a transaction. But the truth is more complicated than that. What truth? Grace asked sharply. Sebastian looked at Vivian, and something vulnerable passed across his face. The truth is that your daughter is the only person who's ever touched me without making me feel contaminated. The truth is that I trapped her in this arrangement because I'm selfish and broken, and I wanted to figure out why she affects me the way she does. Sebastian turned back to Grace. The truth is I'm falling for your daughter, and I don't know how to handle that without trying to control it. Vivian forgot how to breathe. Did Sebastian just say he was falling for her? Grace stared at Sebastian for a long moment. Then she said, "Sit down, Mr. Moretti. Let's talk." Sebastian sat in the chair beside Grace's bed, looking more nervous than Vivian had ever seen him. "You got OCD?" Grace asked bluntly. "Yes, ma'am." "Trauma?" "Yes." "You in therapy?" "No." Grace's expression said everything about what she thought of that answer. "Why not?" "Because I don't deserve to get better. I caused a fire when I was 8 years old that killed my father and my little sister. My OCD is my punishment for that." Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Sebastian blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Dumbest thing ever." Grace shifted in her bed, wincing slightly. "You were a child. Children make mistakes. Tragic, awful mistakes sometimes, but mistakes nonetheless. Punishing yourself for the rest of your life doesn't honor the people you lost. It just wastes the life you still have." Mrs. Wang. "Cross? And using my daughter as some kind of guinea pig to figure out your feelings? That's selfish, and it's wrong." Grace's eyes were fierce now. "But I can see you know that. I can see you feel guilty about it. So here's what's going to happen." Everyone waited. "You're going to therapy, real therapy, not just medication. You're going to work on your issues like a grown man instead of hiding behind your money and your control." Grace pointed a finger at Sebastian. "And you're going to release my daughter from this contract immediately." "Mom!" Vivian protested. "Hush, baby, I'm not done." Grace turned that finger toward Vivian. "And you, if you want to keep working for this man, that's your choice. But it has to be a choice, not an obligation. You understand me?" Vivian nodded, too stunned to speak. Grace looked back at Sebastian. "You love my daughter?" Sebastian swallowed hard. "I think I might. It's complicated. Love is always complicated, but it shouldn't be transactional. So if you want to be with Vivian, you court her properly, you date her, you treat her with respect and dignity, and if she chooses you, it's because she wants you, not because she owes you. Clear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Grace leaned back against her pillows, suddenly looking exhausted. "Now get out, both of you. I need to rest." But as they turned to leave, Grace added quietly, "And Mr. Moretti, thank you for saving my life. I know my daughter is worth it." Vivian and Sebastian stood in the hospital parking lot, neither one knowing what to say. Finally, Sebastian broke the silence. "Your mother is terrifying." Despite everything, Vivian laughed. "Yeah, she's something else. She's also right. About everything." Sebastian turned to face Vivian fully. "I'm releasing you from the contract. Effective immediately. The debt is forgiven. You're free." Vivian's heart dropped. "What?" "No, Sebastian, the money doesn't matter. It never mattered." Sebastian's voice was intense. "What matters is that I trapped you in a situation you never chose, and that was wrong. So I'm making it right. But I don't want... Let me finish." Sebastian took a breath. "I'm releasing you from the contract, but I'm also asking if you'd consider staying. Not as my employee, as something else." "Something else?" "I don't know what to call it yet, but I know that when you're around, my apartment feels like a home instead of a sterile cage. I know that when you touch me, I feel alive for the first time in 24 years. I know that you make me want to be better, to get help, to actually live instead of just existing." Vivian's eyes were burning with tears she refused to let fall. "You don't have to answer now," Sebastian continued. "Take time. Think about it. But Vivian, I need you to know that if you walk away right now, I'll understand. And I'll still make sure your mother gets the best care for the rest of her life. No strings, no debt, just because you deserve it." This man, this broken, complicated, impossible man, was offering her freedom. And all Vivian wanted to do was choose him anyway. "I need to think," Vivian said finally. "This is a lot." "I know, take all the time you need." Sebastian called his driver to take Vivian home. And as the car pulled away, Vivian looked back to see him standing in the parking lot, looking more alone than she'd ever seen him. 3 days later, Vivian hadn't gone back to the penthouse. For 3 days she stayed away, thinking, processing, trying to figure out what she wanted. Sebastian had been true to his word. He'd sent her a formal release from the contract, signed and notarized. Her debt was forgiven. She was free. And Grace's medical bills continued to be paid even though Vivian no longer worked for Sebastian. On the third day, Sienna came over with pizza and wine. "Okay, talk to me," Sienna said, flopping onto Vivian's ratty couch. "You've been radio silent for 3 days. What's going on?" Vivian told her everything. The contract release, Sebastian's confession, Grace's intervention. When she finished, Sienna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Do you love him?" "I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated. It's always complicated with you." Sienna took a bite of pizza. "But here's the real question. Do you want to find out if you love him? Because that's different from knowing for sure. Did Vivian want to find out?" She thought about Sebastian's vulnerable eyes when he talked about the fire, the way he'd faced his hospital phobia just to meet her mother, the electricity that sparked between them every time they touched, the way he'd set her free even though it cost him everything. "Yeah," Vivian said softly. "I think I do." "Then what are you waiting for? Go get your man." Vivian showed up at Sebastian's penthouse at 6:01 p.m. on a Thursday, her heart pounding. She used the key card he'd never asked her to return and rode the elevator up. The penthouse was dark when she arrived. No lights, no sound. "Sebastian?" Vivian called out. No answer. She walked through the living room and noticed something that made her stop dead. There were dishes in the sink, a coffee mug on the counter, a jacket thrown over a chair instead of hung in the closet. Sebastian's perfect order was falling apart. She found him in his bedroom, sitting on the floor with his back against the bed, staring at nothing. The room was a mess. Not as bad as after his nightmare, but definitely not the pristine space Vivian was used to seeing. "Sebastian?" He looked up, and the surprise on his face was almost comical. "Vivian, what are you doing here?" "I came to give you my answer." Sebastian stood up slowly, his expression carefully neutral. "And? But first I need to know something." Vivian stepped closer. "That first night in your office, did you really feel something when we touched, or was that just a line to trap me?" "I felt it." Sebastian's voice was raw, honest. "I've spent my whole life recoiling from human touch. And then you grabbed my wrist and I felt alive. It terrified me. So I trapped you because I'm selfish and I wanted to understand it, to understand you. And do you understand me? No, but I want to spend however long it takes learning." Vivian closed the distance between them until they were standing inches apart. "I have conditions," she said firmly. "Anything. First, you start therapy, real therapy, this week. Done. Second, you stop using your OCD as punishment. You work on getting better because you deserve to heal, not because I'm asking you to. Okay? Third, we date like normal people. You take me to dinner. We go to movies. We figure out if this electricity between us is real or just some weird psychological reaction to trauma and desperation." Sebastian's lips twitched into almost a smile. "Those are fair conditions. And fourth," Vivian reached out and took his hand, feeling that familiar shock run through both of them. "You let me help you clean up this mess, because partners don't let partners drown alone." Sebastian's eyes went bright with emotion. "Partners? If you want to be." Instead of answering with words, Sebastian did something that shocked them both. He pulled her close and wrapped his arms around her in a full embrace. Vivian gasped. Sebastian touching her freely like this still shocked her every time. "Sebastian, you're OCD. Won't this make you panic?" "I thought it would," Sebastian murmured into her hair. "But it doesn't. With you, it doesn't." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other, feeling the electricity flow between them. Not just the strange shock, but something deeper, something real. Finally, Sebastian pulled back slightly to look at her. "I need to test something," he said quietly. "Test what?" "A theory about why I can touch you without feeling contaminated." Sebastian's thumb traced her jawline, his eyes intense. "I think you might be my antidote, the one person who can break through my compulsions, but I need to be sure." "How do you test that?" Sebastian's eyes dropped to her lips. If I can kiss you without recoiling or panicking, I'll know for certain that what I feel for you is stronger than my disorder. Vivian's heart was racing so fast she thought it might explode. And if you can't, then we figure it out together. But Vivian, I need to know. Can I kiss you? Instead of answering, Vivian rose up on her toes and closed the distance between them. The moment Sebastian's lips touched Vivian's, the world stopped. It wasn't just the electricity that sent pleasant tingles through every nerve ending. It was the way Sebastian kissed her, like she was precious, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. One of his hands cupped her face. The other wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and he didn't pull away, didn't panic, didn't recoil. He just kissed her deeper, like he was drowning, and she was air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sebastian pressed his forehead against hers. I think I found my antidote, he whispered. Vivian's laugh was shaky, emotional. That was very smooth. I'm serious. You're the cure to everything that's broken in me. I'm not a cure, Sebastian. I'm just a person. Vivian pulled back to look at him properly. You still need therapy. You still need to work on yourself. I can't fix you. I know, but you make me want to fix myself. That's more than anyone's ever done. They kissed again, slower this time, sweeter. And then Vivian's phone rang. She groaned and pulled it out. The hospital. Hello, Miss Cross, this is Dr. Chen. I wanted to let you know your mother is being released next week. Her recovery has exceeded all our expectations. Vivian felt tears spring to her eyes. Really? She can come home? Yes, she'll need follow-up care and ongoing monitoring, but the cancer's in remission. Your mother beat it, Miss Cross. After Vivian hung up, she turned to Sebastian with tears streaming down her face. Mom's coming home? She beat it. She actually beat it. Sebastian pulled her into another hug, and Vivian felt his chest shake with emotion too. They stood like that in his messy bedroom, holding each other. Two broken people who'd somehow found healing in each other. 1 week later, the knock on Sebastian's door came at 3 or less p.m. on a Tuesday. Sebastian opened it to find a woman he hadn't seen since he was 8, his mother. Hello, Sebastian. Everything inside Sebastian went cold. How did you find me? You're a billionaire CEO. You're not exactly hard to find. His mother, Catherine Moretti, stepped into the penthouse without being invited. We need to talk. Just then, Vivian came out of the kitchen, dish towel in hand, having heard voices. Catherine took one look at her and sneered. Who is this? Your girlfriend? Your wife? She asked it with so much spite directed at Vivian that Vivian took a step back from the force of it. Why do you care? Sebastian shot back, noticing Vivian's unease. You stopped caring about my life several years ago. Remember? You don't deserve happiness, Sebastian. Not after what you did to this family. Vivian stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, watching this stranger tear into Sebastian with a viciousness that made the air feel toxic. Mom, please. Sebastian's voice was strained, his usual confidence completely gone. Don't call me that, the woman snapped. You lost the right to call me that when you killed my husband and daughter. Vivian's breath caught. This was Sebastian's mother, the woman who'd abandoned him after the fire. I didn't murder them, it was an accident. An accident you caused. An accident that destroyed everything. Catherine stepped closer, her finger jabbing at his chest. And then you abandoned me, left me in that facility to rot while you went off to live in luxury with your uncle's money. You didn't even visit, not once. You told the doctors you didn't want to see me. Sebastian's voice was rising now, desperate. You said looking at me made you sick. So you just gave up? Just walked away from your own mother? I was 8 years old. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Catherine's face twisted with something between grief and fury. And now I hear you're playing house with some girl, planning to be happy, planning to just forget what you did and move on with your life. She turned and looked directly at Vivian. Is that her? Is that the girl you think can save you? You heartless son of... Stop, Vivian said firmly, stepping between Sebastian and his mother. Just stop. Catherine turned her fury on Vivian. This doesn't concern you, girl. Yes, it does, because I love him, and I'm not going to stand here and let you abuse him for something that happened when he was a child. You don't understand what he took from me. I understand grief. I understand loss. My mom almost died from cancer. I spent months watching her waste away, knowing I might lose the only parent I have. Vivian's voice was steady, strong. And you know what I never did? I never blamed her for getting sick. I never told her she didn't deserve to live. Because that's not love. That's cruelty. Catherine's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sebastian was 8 years old, Vivian continued, a child. And instead of helping him heal from the trauma of watching his father and sister die, you abandoned him. You told him he was a murderer. You looked at him with hatred and disgust. And then you walked away. He took my family from me. A fire took your family. An accident took your family. Vivian's voice rose. Sebastian lost his father too, and his sister. And then he lost his mother because you were too consumed by grief to see that you still had a son who needed you. Tears filled Catherine's eyes despite her desperate attempts to fight them back. Can you imagine? Vivian's own voice was breaking now. Can you imagine an 8-year-old boy who just lost his dad and sister, thrown out by the only parent he had left? The only person he could turn to for comfort? I spent 20 years in facilities, Catherine whispered. Mental hospitals, treatment centers. Do you know what that does to a person? I can't imagine. I won't lie and say I understand. Vivian's voice was softer now. But Sebastian spent the same years punishing himself. Together you could have helped each other heal. Apart, things just got worse. Mother and son stared at each other across the penthouse. Two people destroyed by the same tragedy, separated by guilt and grief and time. I wanted to come see you, Sebastian said quietly, after the fire. I tried to visit you in the hospital, but they said you didn't want to see me. I couldn't look at you without seeing your father's face, your sister's smile, everything I'd lost. So you lost me too. Catherine's face crumpled. I know I failed you. I was drowning in grief, and I let you drown with me. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was the apology Sebastian had needed for years. He stood frozen, not knowing how to respond. Vivian gently pushed him forward. Talk to her. Really talk. Both of you. She slipped away to the kitchen. 3 hours later, Vivian found Sebastian and Catherine sitting on the couch, a photo album open between them. They were looking at pictures from before the fire. A family of 4, smiling, happy, whole. That's Lily, Catherine said, pointing to a little girl with pigtails. She was so much like you, reckless and wild and full of life. I don't remember her laugh, Sebastian admitted quietly. I've tried, but I can't remember what her laugh sounded like. It sounded like bells, high and clear and joyful. Catherine's voice was thick with tears. She would have loved seeing the man you became. They kept talking, sharing memories, beginning the long process of rebuilding what the fire had destroyed. Vivian slipped away to give them privacy. 2 days later, Sebastian stood in Vivian's tiny apartment, looking completely out of place among the thrift store furniture and peeling paint. Your mother is being released from the hospital today, he said. I know, I'm picking her up in an hour. We'll make it work here somehow. What if I have a better idea? Sebastian pulled out a key. I own a building downtown, luxury apartments. There's a 2-bedroom unit on the 5th floor with a view of the river. It's yours for as long as you need it, no rent. Sebastian, I can't. It's not charity. It's me making sure the woman I love and the mother of the woman I love have a safe, comfortable place to recover and heal. Sebastian pressed the key into her hand. Please let me do this. Vivian looked at the key, then at Sebastian's face. So open, so vulnerable, so full of hope. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Sebastian took both her hands in his. It's the least I can do for you, Vivian. Whatever you want, whatever you need, don't forget to always let me know. Vivian rose up and kissed him, putting everything she felt into it. Gratitude, love, hope, joy. When they broke apart, Sebastian was smiling, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. I started therapy, by the way. Yesterday, first session. How was it? Terrible, uncomfortable. I hated every second. Sebastian's smile widened. I'm going back next week. I'm proud of you. My therapist wants to meet you eventually. She says you're a significant factor in my progress. Your progress? Apparently, having someone who makes you want to heal is a powerful motivator. Sebastian pulled her close again. You make me want to heal, Vivian. You make me want to be better. Not perfect, just better. Good, because I don't want perfect. I want real. They stood in Vivian's cramped apartment, holding each other, and for the first time in either of their lives, they both felt like they'd found home. 1 year later, 1 year after Vivian fell asleep in Sebastian's office, they returned to the Moretti building together. The executive suite on the 68th floor looked exactly the same. Pristine, perfect, controlled. Except now there was a photo on Sebastian's desk. Him and Vivian, laughing at something off camera. His arms around her waist, her head thrown back in joy. Real, imperfect, beautiful. I still can't believe you kept that chair, Vivian said, looking at the Italian leather executive chair where this all started. Are you kidding? That chair is significant. It's where I found you, where everything changed. Where you woke me up with a ruler and threatened to call security on yourself. Details. Sebastian grinned and pulled her down into the chair with him. Make a wish. A wish? You fell asleep in this chair a year ago, desperate and exhausted. Now you're here by choice, happy and healthy. That seems like a good reason to make a wish. Vivian closed her eyes and thought about everything that had happened in the past year. Grace's recovery, the debt forgiven, Sebastian's therapy, Catherine's return, the messy, complicated, beautiful relationship they'd built. She opened her eyes and looked at the man who'd trapped her, and then set her free. I wish for more of this, Vivian said simply. More growth, more healing, more love. More of us figuring out life together. That's a good wish, Sebastian murmured, kissing her softly. I'll help you make it come true. And he did. Because sometimes love isn't about perfection or control. It's about choosing to grow together, even when it's messy and hard. It's about finding someone who makes you want to heal, not because they fix you, but because they make you believe you're worth fixing. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst day of your life leads you directly to the best thing that ever happened to you.